A human engineer named Evan Ward is taken as a peace guest by the Vel'Rath Empire, a powerful alien matriarchy feared across the galaxy. He is escorted into the Queen's colossal throne hall, built with glowing crystals and humming alien energy. Everyone watches him as if he is prey. When the Queen enters, the air changes. Queen Xylarra, tall, muscular, elegant, and almost terrifyingly beautiful, walks with a confidence that makes the hall vibrate. Evan tries not to stare, but her alien body is unlike anything he has seen: sharp curves, silver skin, and glowing markings. He lowers his head to show respect, but his eyes flick upward for a moment. And that is when the Queen stops walking. The entire hall freezes. She turns her head slowly, eyes glowing bright blue. Welcome to my channel Sci-Fi Love Story. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Evan Ward's heart pounded as he was escorted through the colossal corridors of the Vel'Rath Palace. Towering walls of crystal glimmered under an eerie violet light, and the air hummed with alien energy that made his skin tingle. Every step echoed unnaturally, magnifying his every nervous move. Around him, armored alien guards moved silently, their glowing eyes scanning him with quiet suspicion. He tried to keep his head low. Humans were weak. He knew it. The Vel'Rath were a proud, warlike empire, their warriors unmatched across galaxies. And here he was, a single human engineer, plucked from Earth under the pretense of diplomacy, but he suspected that survival was a luxury he might not earn. The palace hall opened into a massive chamber, a throne room unlike anything he had ever seen. Crystals floated in midair, pulsing with a rhythmic light that seemed almost alive. The floor shimmered beneath him, reflecting the towering ceiling and making it hard to tell where walls ended and space began. At the far end, perched on a throne of blackened crystal, sat Queen Xylarra. She was breathtaking, terrifying, and almost unreal. Tall, muscular, with silver-toned skin that glimmered under the alien lights. Her glowing blue eyes scanned the room with the precision of a predator. Her every movement radiated power. And despite the distance, Evan felt her attention lock onto him immediately. He told himself to look away. He lowered his head, bowing slightly to show respect. But it was instinctive. His eyes betrayed him, flicking upward for the briefest of moments. The entire hall froze. Guards stopped moving. A low hum seemed to vanish. Even the floating crystals dimmed slightly, as if the palace itself recognized her focus. Then her voice rang out, echoing like thunder. "Did you think I didn't notice you constantly staring at my ass, human?" The words hit him like a physical blow. His stomach dropped. His knees threatened to buckle. He knew he had been caught, and somehow, it was far worse than he had imagined. Gasps rippled through the guards. Evan's mind raced. He was going to die. Every survival instinct screamed at him to apologize, explain, plead. But before he could say anything, the Queen rose from her throne. Her presence filled the hall like a storm. She moved slowly, deliberately, circling him with an almost predatory grace. Every step she took seemed to command the very air, bending it to her will. Evan could hear the soft click of her boots against the crystalline floor and felt the weight of her scrutiny. "Why were your eyes there, human?" Her voice was sharp, demanding, leaving no room for falsehood. Evan swallowed hard. "Speak the truth," he told himself. "Lying will only make it worse." I was scared," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "And impressed. You move like you own everything you see." A long silence followed. The Queen tilted her head, considering him, her glowing eyes piercing his soul. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. Not a playful laugh, but a sound of dominance and curiosity, reverberating through the hall. "Interesting," she said. "Most humans would have fallen to their knees, trembling, lying to save themselves. You are honest." She signaled the guards to leave, and suddenly, Evan found himself alone with her. The air between them seemed charged, thick with unspoken tension. The Queen led him through a series of corridors that twisted impossibly, glowing crystals reflecting strange patterns on the walls. They passed other Vel'Rath citizens, who whispered among themselves, eyes wide with awe and fear. The Queen chose him, another human. Why? He will not survive the night. Evan's heart pounded. Every whisper made him feel smaller, weaker, yet somehow more important. At last, they reached a chamber deeper than the others. The walls were lined with ancient murals depicting battles, victories, and destroyed worlds. The Queen paused before one of the murals, her glowing fingers brushing over the images. "Humans," she said softly, "are known for deception. Your species survives because of lies, manipulation, cunning. And yet, you surprised me. Evan swallowed. He didn't know what to say. But before he could, the Queen turned sharply, her expression hardening. There is something you should know, she said, her voice lowering. Something even I fear. She led him to a massive chamber, dark except for the eerie blue light of a stasis pod at its center. Cracks marred its surface, and faint blue energy leaked from within, curling into the air like smoke. Evan felt the hum of power, a force so ancient it made his skin crawl. This, she said, gesturing to ward the pod, is the Devourer of Stars. A monster that consumed worlds before the Vel'Rath existed. It has been sealed here for thousands of years. And the seal is failing. Evan felt a chill run down his spine. A monster powerful enough to destroy worlds. And she had brought him here. Why, you, the Queen continued, her voice sharp and commanding, have a role to play. Humans resist corruption in ways my people cannot. You are special, weak, but unpredictable, honest, but brave. And that is exactly what I need. Evan's mind reeled. I'm just a human, he stammered. I don't know anything about fighting monsters like this. You underestimate yourself, Xylarra interrupted, her glowing eyes narrowing. You survive where others fail. That is why you are here. That is why I chose you. She stepped closer, the hum of the chamber amplifying her presence. Her breath, cool and alien, brushed against his ear. You will enter this chamber with me, she whispered. And if you fail, my empire dies. Every soldier, every city, every world under my rule, gone. Evan's legs shook. He tried to speak, to protest, to retreat, but the Queen's eyes held him in place. She exuded authority, power, and something else, a force that demanded loyalty, even from someone like him. A low rumble shook the chamber. Cracks spread across the walls, and the blue energy from the stasis pod surged upward. The Devourer was waking. The Queen's hand rested briefly on his shoulder. The touch was heavy, not gentle, commanding. Fear is expected, she said. But failure is not. Step forward, human, or step aside and let my world burn. Evan felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. He took a shaky breath and nodded. Whatever this was, whatever awaited him, he could not turn back. Good, she said, a note of approval in her voice. We begin, now. The chamber seemed to contract around them, the blue light intensifying, the hum turning into a roar. Evan's pulse raced. He realized that every instinct, every skill he had, would be tested. Not only for his life but for the survival of an entire empire. As he followed the Queen to the pod, he glanced back once at the murals, scenes of battles, victories, fallen enemies, and understood the stakes. The Vel'Rath Empire had faced countless threats, yet they relied on a human. On him, the Queen's presence was overwhelming, yet strangely grounding. Even in the face of a planet-threatening monster, her dominance gave him direction. She was terrifying, brilliant, unstoppable, and somehow, she had chosen him. Evan took a deep breath. The chamber trembled again, and a low, guttural sound echoed from within the pod. The Devourer was stirring, and time was slipping away. You will learn quickly, the Queen said, her eyes flars. Hing, or you will die, and I will not mourn you. Do you understand, human? I understand, he said, voice barely steady. Good, she said, then step forward. The blue energy surged, the chamber quaking violently. Evan's vision blurred. For a brief moment, he thought of Earth, of his life, of all the small, insignificant choices that had brought him here. And then, the Queen stepped forward, placing her hand on the pod, channeling energy into it. Evan had no choice but to follow. The chamber shook, the light blinding, the ancient monster stirring. The fate of an empire rested in the hands of a human, and he had no idea if he was strong enough. The chamber trembled violently, sending shards of crystal skittering across the floor. Blue energy swirled around Evan and Queen Xylarra as the Devourer of Stars roused itself within its cracked stasis pod. Its psychic presence hit Evan like a physical force. He staggered, clutching his head as whispers crawled through his mind, dark and insistent. Break the seal. Let me out. I will give you power. He fell to his knees, gasping. Every instinct screamed at him to flee. But the Queen's hand gripped his shoulder, firm and unyielding. Her glowing eyes bore into him like twin stars, cutting through fear and hesitation. You will not falter, human, she said, her voice sharp and commanding. You were chosen. You survive where others fail. Stand. Shakily, Evan rose. The Queen stepped aside, her body radiating energy that made the air itself shimmer. The stasis pod groaned, cracks spreading, leaking black smoke tinged with blue sparks. The Devourer's mind clawed at him, trying to infiltrate his thoughts, twist them, corrupt him. Evan shook his head violently, fighting to resist. He remembered her words, "You are unpredictable. You are human. You can resist what my people cannot." The Queen raised her arms, palms glowing with raw alien energy. Her power was immense, but even she struggled to hold back the psychic surge of the monster. Evan realized the scale of the danger. This was not a mere fight of strength. It was a battle of will, of mind, of the very essence of being. "You must channel your fear into focus," she commanded. "You are part of this now, whether you like it or not. If you fail, everything dies." Evan nodded, taking a deep breath. The whispers in his head grew louder, more insistent, but he pushed back. He focused on Earth, on his home planet, the one place he could not afford to lose. He imagined the people there, oblivious to the vast empire and ancient monsters threatening the galaxy. "Good," the Queen said, noting the determination in his eyes. "Now touch the pod." Evan hesitated. His fingers hovered above the glowing cracks. Energy surged from the Devourer, a psychic pulse that threatened to throw him across the chamber. His body screamed in pain, but he reached out, brushing the palm of his hand against the stasis pod. Immediately, a jolt of alien energy coursed through him. Images flashed across his mind, worlds consumed, civilizations wiped out, stars collapsing into darkness. His knees buckled. He felt small, insignificant, powerless. And then he felt the Queen's power merge with his own. Her presence bolstered him, lent him strength he didn't know he had. "You are stronger than you realize," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Do not let it break you." Evan focused on the seal itself, imagining it as a fragile thread connecting the Devourer to its prison. He pushed back against the psychic wave, holding the mental cord together even as the monster screamed inside his mind. He realized the truth: the Vel'Rath relied on more than brute force. They relied on courage, unpredictability, and the willingness to stand when the odds were impossible. The Devourer surged again, a pulse of energy that threw Evan to the floor. He groaned, struggling to rise, but the Queen extended her hand, pulling him upright. Her body shimmered with power, and even in the midst of chaos, she radiated control. "You almost fell," she said, her tone sharp but not unkind. "Fear is natural, but hesitation is not. Focus." Evan gritted his teeth and touched the pod again. Energy flowed into him, and he felt the Devourer's force press against his mind, threatening to overwhelm him. Shadows of despair tried to cloud his thoughts, but he remembered the Queen's judgmental gaze from earlier. The moment he had looked at her, the moment she had caught him staring, had been a test. He had survived that. He could survive this. Channeling every ounce of focus, Evan pushed back. The cracks in the stasis pod began to glow brighter, blue energy surging into the surrounding chamber. The Devourer screamed, a sound that vibrated through the very walls, shaking loose shards of crystal that clattered to the floor. The Queen raised her hands higher, her energy blazing. Evan could feel her directing power through him, merging with his human resistance. Together, they became a conduit, a link between mortal and immortal, between human unpredictability and alien supremacy. For a moment, everything faltered. A pulse of pure darkness surged from the Devourer, aiming straight for Evan. He felt himself being torn apart. Pain lanced through him, and the world tilted. He almost screamed. Then the Queen stepped forward, her body moving to shield him. She absorbed part of the psychic wave, staggering but refusing to fall. Her armor cracked, silver light glowing through, yet her presence was undiminished. She extended her hand, gripping his wrist with an iron grip. "Do not falter now," she commanded. "You are stronger than this monster. You are human. You are mine." Evan drew strength from her words, from her dominance. He focused all his will, pushing back against the Devourer, shaping the energy like a blade. Slowly, deliberately, he guided the force into the cracks of the pod, reinforcing the seal with sheer determination. The Devourer roared, a sound of fury and ancient malice, but it could not break the human's focus. Evan poured everything into the task: fear, courage, hope, survival. The blue light intensified, a blinding brilliance that filled the chamber. Then, in a final, resounding pulse, the seal snapped closed. The pod shook violently, then settled. Silence followed, thick and heavy. The Devourer's psychic screams faded into nothingness. The chamber was still, the only sound the heavy breathing of Evan and the Queen. Evan collapsed to the floor, exhausted, every muscle trembling. The Queen stepped toward him, her glowing eyes scanning him critically. Then, without warning, she extended a hand and helped him to his feet. "You did it," she said, her voice softer now, tinged with approval. "You saved my empire, you saved countless lives, and you did it with nothing but human will and honesty." Evan could hardly speak. His throat was dry, his body aching. I just did what you told me," he said. "No," the Queen said, shaking her head. "You did more than obey. You survived when others would have fallen. You were stronger than I expected." The guards entered the chamber, eyes wide with awe. They knelt before the Queen, then glanced at Evan with a mixture of respect and fear. He was no longer just a human engineer. He had survived the impossible. The Queen looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a smirk played across her lips. "And as for you staring earlier," she said, voice sharp but amused. "I may allow it next time." Evan's face burned red. He wanted to explain, to apologize, but the Queen simply turned and began walking out of the chamber, her presence still commanding, still unshakable. He followed, unsure whether to feel fear or admiration. As they exited, a messenger arrived, trembling. "Your Majesty, Earth has sent a message. They say, they need help." The Queen and Evan exchanged a serious look. A new challenge had arisen. The Devourer of Stars had been sealed, but the galaxy was not at peace. Evan realized then that his journey had only just begun. He was no longer a simple human engineer. He had been tested, chosen, and elevated beyond the ordinary limits of his species. The Queen had seen potential where no one else did, and that recognition carried weight, both privilege and responsibility. The Queen's tail flicked behind her, her energy hummy. "NG quietly. Human," she said, looking down at him with an unreadable expression, "prepare yourself. Our work is far from over. The galaxy will test you again, and I will be watching." Evan swallowed, his chest tight with anticipation and fear. He knew the coming days would be filled with danger, trials, and unimaginable challenges. But he also knew something profound: he could survive. Humans had endured, adapted, and evolved in ways even the most powerful alien empires could not anticipate. And beside him stood the most powerful being he had ever encountered. The Queen, alien and unstoppable, had chosen him. For the first time, Evan felt not fear, but determination. The galaxy was vast, the stakes were immense, but he had survived impossible odds once, and he would do it again. The chamber doors closed behind them, sealing the Devourer within its prison. Outside, the Empire stirred. Soldiers whispered of the human who had stood against an ancient terror. Citizens wondered at his bravery. And in the shadows, Xylarra's eyes glowed brighter, contemplating the future, and the strange, fragile creature she had chosen to fight alongside her. The next adventure was waiting. The human had proven himself once, but in the vastness of the galaxy, challenges would come again. And Evan Ward, trembling but resolute, knew he was ready.